Okay, as you see, it's slower than before, but we can see, for example, how it looks there. So let's stop, let's go back about one frame, and we can render. So we have an idea, a rough idea about the final look, to understand if it is going to be okay for this resolution. Let's wait. Obviously it is a little bit slower. We have something over, but it's the other explosion. But you see that the look about the other dust is not bad. So just for a moment we can select this one and say render no smoke. So we have just the dust parts we need there, and we can see the right look. Okay, it is going not bad. Obviously, if you like, you can tune and have an higher quality for the dust, and also an higher scaling for the various detail. Actually, we are really working with a not so high scaling. We can try also to scale down the system scale value, and selecting back the other one. I like to make also test just changing a parameter inside the rendering, and I mean the value there. Let's scale up a little bit. Let's go to 0.1. It is just a little bit to see if it's better or not. Okay, it's just a little bit more, and I like to make a test with a lower system scale. So let's go to system scale 0.05. We can simulate some frames just to see if we like the new way or not. And let's see the other parameters. I think we can stay with the other parameters we have, and that's all. Let's see also there if we have some noise or some disturbance there. No, nothing special. So let's simulate some frames and let's see how it looks, and then we'll move to the other passes. So that's, for example, the result we are obtaining at this layer now, and I like maybe to maintain this this kind of result. Obviously you can tune up or change or modify the look as you like. You have no problem. Maybe I like just to add the shadows on this one too. Shadow parameters, it's okay. Let's save and see the result. Okay, you see now we have a more interesting look for our dust. So I think we can maintain this kind of parameters to obtain the final resolution. Rendering, if you like, you can have also higher value. So let's save and let's move to the next one. In this one we have to add the various lighting, so let's add this one and let's add the second one. Set back to renderable the smoke, and we go to the other one, and in the render we set to not renderable the smoke, so we can tune just on the explosion pass. Let's open again the preview. Let's go for the GPU preview, and let's set the shadows. And it's obviously really too low. Let's go for 25, and in the generation let's rise up the resolution, nothing so much, maybe just 360 and 300 frames for the output. and 300 frames there. And about the simulation, let's start to rise up to 250. And for the other stuff, let's go a little bit higher with the gravity and a little bit lower with the scaling resolution. Let's go for maybe 1, and this one is moving a little bit slower, so it's 10 for the simulation there. And I think we can go with this one, so save. And about the rendering, we'll have also there the black coloring, and we'll have a keyless mode, but there the smoke will be darker. Let's go for a little bit denser, maybe. Let's try with 1.5, and we have the cast shadows and the receive shadows. So save, and we can start the simulation for this part. Okay, I like to see the look. So let's go a little bit back, and we have this kind of explosion. Let's see if it is working in a nice way. You know, both will be rendering together, so FumeFX will take care about the mixing about this process. Okay. Let's see the various collision. Okay, we have a nice collision with the mountain. Let's see the particle speed there. We have particle velocity, let's say 1.5. Let's have a little bit of variation for the smoke. So we'll have more smoke or less smoke in various areas, and we'll have different speed also. And I like to see inside the simulation, let's say that this one has the tendency to going away faster. Okay, and we can make some preview with a faster simulation, and I like to have also a lower density, so let's go for 1. And I think we can try now to have a simulation and see how it looks. Okay, we can make some preview. So let's see first of all what happened. You see that we have the explosion, then it is just moving through the air and trying to disappear. So let's see the frame there, the smoke alone at various stage, and then we see with the other passes how it looks. So let's wait for the illumination calculation. It is fast, and you see it is not bad, not so bad. Obviously you can tune the resolution to obtain a better quality if needed, and to have a different scaling too. And then we see when we have the dust going away, for example there, let's see how it looks, and then we merge the other layer and we can decide the final pass resolution. So let's wait. Okay, and you see that the dust is opening to create just a dust cloud, and that's really nice. So let's set the other one as visible. So select the FumeFX one, and this one will be set as renderable. And let's see, for example, this frame to understand how it is looking. it will take maybe just a little bit more. Okay, you see that the other one is more dense than this one, and this one is a little bit less dense. I like just to add again the 0.1. Let's try to go back to 0 to see if it looks better, and then we can rise up the resolution for the other one. And we can change a little bit the coloring for the dust we just prepared, the explosion dust. Okay, you see that it is going better. I like just to have a bigger scale on this one later when we are re-simulating just a test. Let's go for, we have 35, let's try with maybe 1.5, so a little bit bigger to have more detail. Or maybe let's try directly with 2. And on the other one we need just to scale down, sorry, the resolution to have a nicer look. Let's see, for example, with 3. I think we can go a little bit lower. Okay, we can see some frames together, and then we can just adjust, before we can adjust also the color. So let's go for something more similar to dust coloring, something like that. Let's recheck the rendering. Okay, it is working, but we need just a little bit less saturation, to something more similar to the gray color. Okay, and now we can simulate some frames with this resolution and see how it looks. So let's see, for example, at this frame with the final parameter we are using. Okay, so you see that the quality is really nice. Let's see at the beginning when the explosion is starting. So let's go back and let's go, for example, just a little bit before, just for example there. Let's render, so we can tweak a little bit the various parameter. Okay, we have it, and I like to tweak the density there. For this one, let's try with 0.4, maybe 0.35, and re-render. So it is better because you see it is less dense, and I like to tweak a little bit also the other one. And we can, for example, let's go to a frame where we have more stuff visible, for example there, and I like to have just a little bit of variation there. Let's try with 0.02, for example, and I like to have a bigger opacity of the smoke. Let's try with 20, and let's render. Okay, you see that in this case we have a really dense dust all around falling, and we have this kind of dust, just not so dense, and I talking about the explosion dust. So let's find a nice looking position for our camera. So we can try to have, for example, from there, create from view. We have the camera, and now we can start playing a little bit. Let's change again a little bit. Okay, and I like to move it, And I like to see also from the other point of view. Let's go to see the camera. It's a target camera. Let's go for, let's select the target, and I like to move it, and then we can tweak this one manually, and let's move just a little bit, and then we select both with a Control key and we move it, and then just the target, and then maybe just a little bit less sides for the lens. And let's go to select this one, and I like to see the preview to understand if we like the look. And let's try, we save, and let's try to make a test render. Before we launch the final simulation, I'd like to make some adjustment to the main explosion, because we moved the camera and I'd like to tune up, and because it needs to work from this point of view. So I like to tune the sides and the various parameters. So if we see from this point of view, we can need to have it a little bit bigger, because the smoke, when collide with the ground, can rise up a little bit. And let's move it a little bit down. And then we have the length. The length can be a little bit lower, because as you see, we are working just mainly on a part of the explosion of the mountain. So we can stay with something more little. Let's try with something like that. And the 8 can be lower, because we don't see the top area. So we can go to something like that. So we have less need to have a big grid, and we can have less gigabytes of simulation. Let's open the panel there. You see that actually it is not a so big simulation, but we'll go lower for the final one. Let's see. Okay, everything is right there. In the simulation, we can stay maybe just a little bit lower to speed up the simulation. And I like to change a little bit the time scale to have a slowdown of the simulation that will start before. So let's go in the curve editor, and in the simulation we have this part. It can be linear, so we select both key and set to linear, and then we can select again the keys, and with the with the mouse button pressed, we can move those keys. Let's say that it will start maybe there to slow down, so we have the explosion and then the slow down falling down, and save. We can have a little bit less gravity, so we can manipulate and create more curvy over the simulation. And I like to have more turbulence. It can be a little bit slow, so 10 frames to create the evolution of the noise. And the scale will be obviously lower, because we need to create more detail. There we can tune up maybe just a little bit the smoke simulation, and in this case we can maybe just have a little bit more dissipation strength. So we go to the default value 3, and in the rendering, for the final render, we can stay maybe with the basic law threshold, so we go back to the default. And something I like to change is to work mainly to have more smoke to create more details using the density in the object source, and have the default opacity, so we'll go for something more physically accurate and less tricks inside the viewport, inside the rendering. So we can go inside. Let's check if we have still the multiple scattering, and we can go there inside the object source. And in the object source, we can manipulate a little bit. There we have this one is right. And inside the FumeFX source, we can have maybe some variation. So we can have a little bit less velocity. So we'll have less stretching. Let's go for 3.7. But I like to have more variation about the radius. So we have more chaotic creation about the fluid particles. And then we can have a higher amount of smoke, so we'll go to create more details. Let's go for 5, and we can still have a lot of variation. In this case, we can go to save. Let's see how much memory. Let's try to calculate a preview, but with a lower resolution to see just some frames. And then we can maybe adjust some little things in the explosion, and we can see together all the frames to tune up for the final resolution. So let's open the preview and let's go to simulate. So we can see how it is looking, and I think that the simulation is really nice. You see that we have the explosion, everything is falling down, and then it is growing. So let's see just one frame. Obviously the resolution is low and lower than we need, and I like just to see if we have the also the cubic interpolation, because I like to have it to have a more precise simulation, but we can see the render. So you see that sorry, the look is really not bad. Obviously we need resolution, but we have nice coloring now, and we have a lot of swirl. So the last thing we can do is to add also the cubic interpolation to have more detail during the simulation, and we can plan to have the final resolution. And let's see if we can go to 0.2. Okay, you will have 10 gigabytes. If you have not so much memory, you have to use a lower spacing. If you have a lot of memory and time, you can also try to rise down a little bit this one to have still more resolution than my test. Let's go back to there and select the explosion layer, and let's see if it is renderable. Okay, it is renderable, but you see we need to have more space there because it is cutting. So we have just to rise down this one because we don't see the top part. Let's see there. Okay, that's let's see just the first part. Okay, we have this kind of explosion, and I like to see just this frame on. And let's go in the camera, because I like to see what do we see inside the rendering. Okay, you see that's the actual simulation. In this case, I think we can lower just some parameters, so the final one can be done with 6. Okay, we can use the cubic interpolation also there, and we can go to have, okay, let's stay with 1, and the final resolution is 0.25, so we can go maybe just a little bit lower to 0.7, and there we can stay with this value, and let's go there in the rendering. It is not so much, so I think we can maintain all the other parameters and use this one, but obviously we have to rise down this one to be sure that we are picking all we need, and to be sure we have to set this one like that. Okay, we can save, and actually I think we have everything, and it is ready. I like just to simulate some frames with the high resolution to show you how it is looking. So we can save and see something in a few. Okay, the simulation is done, and I just moved a little bit the other stuff just to work on the frame, and we can see a still frame. Okay, that's a frame, as you can see, and we have a lot of detail. Obviously, if you like to have more detail, you have just to tune a little bit the various parameters about the spacing and also the noise variation, and that's all. And we are ready to render the final one, and everything is ready for finalization. So for the moment, that's all, and I hope to see you back on Max Cookie to check for new tutorial coming from cgcookie.com. Bye.